Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Play Chroma Squad. I'm your host, the Ronin of Dreams, and I've had a lot of real-life delays, which I apologize about, but there's a big silver lining to it all. Namely, we actually have the Director's Cut Edition, which, as you can see by the title screen, includes a couple of neat little graphical changes along the way. In this case, a lot more of that CRT TV effect coming on. But we do also have a new squad as voted by the thread, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus video, not only showcasing exactly who our new squad is personality-wise and stat-wise, but also the Transitmancer fight. Meanwhile, we have Season 2 premiere to go over, and first things first, we got skills to pick. Now, I did the gearing off camera, but as you can see, we get a good bit of skill choices for the second season. I'm going with more HP on the leader because right now we don't have a spear and audience gain skills are bad. Our Assault, meanwhile, has two really good choices here. Almighty Assault's critical boost is awesome, but Squarehouse Kick is something that can be equally amazing. I didn't use it much in my first playthrough of the game, so I'm going to stick with it this time. Our Scout also has some interesting choices. Passive of Dexterity is really good. A Scout is meant to dodge most things, and plus 20% dodge out of the gate, on top of the anti-tonic bonus of an extra 10, it gets to insane levels very quickly. And you want high dodge on your Scouts normally. Scouts also have a fan club, which can give you audience for each tile you move. Again, audience generators aren't really necessary, at least at this difficulty. And their third skill happens to be another passive, Mobility. Now, if you want somebody who can cover most of the map, your Scout is going to be the chassis you can build to do that. But I'm kind of okay with a low movement Scout. They're still moving as quickly as everything else because, again, Anti-Tonic has a -1 move, but Scouts move quick as it is, so I'm going to stick with Dexterity right now, unless there gets arguments for later on about switching things around. Meanwhile, you can see I've got some choices leading on into the future that can be equally powerful depending on whether or not I stick with Dexterity or I change things around. Our Techie gets a new passive in the form of Sniper Cat, and I have a big bonus with the Techie, and I'll show that off when we get to the equipment phase. But Sniper Cat does synergize with Multi-Shot and will apply to each shot, and I find it to be the stronger choice than Teleport. Teleport's great for movement. Techie, our Techie in particular, has very low health. In a higher difficulty scenario, I could see Teleport being required. But for now, I'm sticking with the damage. Let's make those shots count, people, and our Techie's pretty good at it. The Assist actually has the most changes going on here. She has two different choices at Season 2. Circle of Friendship is your best healing AoE ability, and it's going to be something that's going to be part of your kit for pretty much the entire game. It also heals the Assist, which is one of the reasons why it makes it so powerful. Her other option isn't nearly as good, and because everything's percentile, you never have to worry about not healing for meaningful amounts. That said, I do wind up comparing it to Healdukin in a bit. Because Healdukin's singles target 50%, well, it's not as useful anymore, and the plus 15 skill regen turns your Circle of Friendship to a 2-turn cooldown. That's really, really good. Now, her others is Recover, which is a passive that lets her gain skill regen every time she attacks. I'm not as big a fan about that one. It's just not as necessary. It can be useful, and there are certain cases later on where you might want to use it, but we need to get to later seasons for that to really start kicking in. So, for now I'm going to run the extra skill regen and run Circle of Friendship. You could run Healdukin and have Circle of Friendship on in a longer cooldown and be perfectly fine, to be fair, at least at the difficulty we're playing through to showcase this game. Thankfully, skills haven't been one of the big changes, and most of the equipment gearing at this point still isn't either. I wound up crafting bucket helmets from Season 1 for everyone, and I switched to the reinforced suits from the Season 2 shop for flat health on every character. I also wound up crafting gloves and boots for everybody, and we do get to see that crafting rate seems to have been changed slightly. I've gotten more variation this time around, despite already having a workshop bench and having an Asmobot chassis. For the assist, I went with extra health and some critical because I had critical. For the techie, I'm actually switching to the email right now because I mentioned before some emails come randomly. Well, as it stands, after the first episode recording for this squad, I got an urgent request for the techie. Now this is a flat techie, it doesn't matter what actor your techie is. But by helping out, we got the Seeker. Now the Seeker happens to be a rifle, and it's actually worthwhile right now because it's several grades better than any level of equipment we can make right now. I also went with dodge boots on our techie because, well, being vulnerable and having under 200 health compared to everybody else, I'd rather try and make sure he doesn't get hit. Getting that extra dodge helps out. And as you can see, 250 plus for most other characters. And that's with the better leather gloves. He has plus 35 health. Our assist, Cat, only has plus 25. So you can see some variation on that crafting right there. But the Seeker is the big thing. Gets bonus critical percent and minus 30% enemy dodge for a decent weapon damage, and because it's a rifle, longer weapon skill range when it comes to just shooting with the rifle. Now, rifles do not mean I can't multi-shot, which is why I'm actually okay with it, and that's a change that happened before this particular patch. Our leader Bender is going with more critical percent from gloves. It's kind of what I rolled. And for his boots, went with counter. Our Bender not only has an immense amount of HP, but he's got a lot of counter, so I'm hoping to put him in danger as things goes on. Our Assault wants critical percent chance, and, well, health is health, and it's what I rolled, so I went ahead and put it on him. As you can see, he has over 100 attack, and despite not marrying a bonus from his chassis to his character roll, I'm still having plenty of attack to one-shot most basic grunts. Meanwhile, our Scout has the other 16% dodge boots I rolled. It's really kind of nice. So he already has 56% dodge. Stuntman is going to win quite a number of battles of attrition just because he can dodge non-auto hit attacks. Now, as I said, I did almost everything off screen, but I do want to show off that I have a new marketing agency here. I went with the indie marketing gig from Season 2 because I have a lot of fan conversion rate and income conversion rates that I can add on with fan power. Now, I went ahead and activated Conference to get me some of that fan conversion now, and because I rolled a really good random for this. But I hired them for 3 episodes, and it'll work out in the long run. I also want to show off that every season you get 3 new contracts. We could have gone with the Green Team, which gets you some base fans for recycling as well as more item drops. Not a bad thing by any means. Or we could have gone with the Max Communications, which also had a plus 10% plus 10 income conversion rate built in, but they're very pricey on fan power. So right now I'm going to go with the one that builds me more fans to get there. But 35 fans per episode is not a bad trait at all, and we're also getting some flat money per episode that we could get. Now, speaking of some of the changes in Director's Cut, I've actually been able to gain a lot more money during this season, but they did make an alteration that impacted me for this setup phase, and that being the new contract for Season 2 only gave me 1,000. As far as other little random things we got that You Are in Danger one, but we got 2 other emails I want to point out here. We Are Not Alone threatens that we're getting details wrong, and by bringing them in for what's supposed to be a much higher money rate, we got an item called Black Goo. Black Goo is a high-level crafting material, and we won't see that yet in our system because, well, we can't use it yet. But we do have it, and it's nice to have gotten it for a single $1. The other email we got is called A Fan and Her Sister, and those are just honest-to-God fans who are like, we'd love to come down and see what you do. If you don't be a complete ass and say maybe next week, you can get an extra 2 fans. It doesn't sound like much, but sometimes 1 fan is the difference, and we saw that in the Season 1 material that I did on the original squad. It's really kind of cute that they even made their own shirts. As for today's studio references, we are using, I believe, PM Perfect. Regardless, we're using a thread submission, and I'll make the proper call out later. We also have access to the mecha, and I'm going to keep it bug standard for this episode because I'm going to go and use that same bonus video to help show off everything with the mecha, because some things are changed now. And for now, though, we're going to go ahead and get into the Season 2 premiere episode recording. Now you can see that there's a max audience of 4,000 and 3 director's instructions. We even get a preview that we're going to have a survival wave as the first section. Now, premieres tend to be like finales. They're larger and longer. They're usually not as long as a finale, but Season 1's finale is kind of off-putting in some regards because it's meant to go ahead and portray who you are as a team and finally get you your mecha in your squad's colors. The other 2 sections of the instructions are giving us useful information, and defeating the boss monster before defeating all minions is a little bit of a curveball of a condition to get. Now, it won't matter for this run because I already know I gain a lot of audience along the way, but I do fulfill that condition, and it can be painful for other setups. In the meantime, brand new season, brand new episode plots, brand new arcs to be found, and we have a brand new squad. I've referenced it a little bit, and while I'm going to display them in a proper method with the actual bonus video, I'm going to go ahead and go over. We have Bender from Futurama as our leader. We have Takeshi Hongo played by the Monk character as our assault. Stuntman, descendant of the Stiggs family tree, is being played by Antitonic. Chris Solid, a perfectly normal human being, is being played by the alien actor choice. And Kat, our PE teacher turned Super Sentai squad member, is our assist. Meanwhile, we're getting ambushed for a survival scenario, which is going to be kind of interesting. Sadly, we do have Mount Fuji being ripped apart, and are going to have to replace that part of the set. Also, the power of imagination is alive and well. And you really didn't think it was going to be as easy as 4 nutcrackers at a time, did you? Now, we do have an audience level we're going to need to meet in order to transform, but it's not too big of a problem. What is a problem is there are bread crumblers, and I hate bread crumblers because they tend to be something we can't one-shot yet with our current gear and personnel system. So I'm going to go ahead and divide my team for round 1, plan on that bonus healing in round 2 or 3, and frankly just do what I can to lay down some good hurt on our enemy opposition from the initial setup. Now, in any survival scenario in this game, you will get reinforcements spawning, and being too good at killing folks can lead you into a problem. The other big key that they don't tell you about survival rounds is the last round is going to involve an attack by the enemy. You do not get to manipulate that. They will always get the final shots in. Although, when they're shooting at the scout who has 56 dodge already, things are good for me. Ultimately, Season 2 does not bring out many upgrades initially to our field of foes, as it were. We will get some, and they are going to be impactful. But for now, they're just kind of there. As you can see, I'm still doing manipulations, and because of how little damage I took in round 1, I've decided to push my luck in round 2, get a couple of needless acrobatic boosts in, and simply take out a couple more of the real grunts, the nutcrackers. Thankfully, the shell shield did not stun on his turn, because that could have thrown a wrench in the works. And, as I said, we do get reinforcements. Thankfully, reinforcements do not act on the turn they arrive most times. You'll get certain situations where that will, however, change. Now, as usual, I'm using the actual transformation sequence to pull my team together, and it's getting our assist and techie out of dodge, but not before they team up to take out that bread crumbler. Doing aspects like that throughout this game can really elevate your play, and may in fact be necessary at the higher difficulties, especially since they finally released the heroic difficulty. I don't know how bad that can get. I haven't played it yet, nor have I played the New Game Plus or New Game Plus Plus yet. But I can tell you, I'm looking forward to checking that out, and understanding that running the Aliens low HP build in that level of difficulty is probably semi-suicidal. Now, I do kind of do a little bit of crit fishing and went for the higher HP target here. I'm safe because I've stunned them both and neither of them can retaliate, but I was kind of hoping to wipe an extra one off the field. If I did, I might have gotten into a situation where I'd have had reinforcements coming in though, and that could have been bad. Instead, I have a situation where I can set up a multi-shot and wipe out many different characters. I kind of like this play, and it's the type of thing I look forward to whenever I can get good AoE hits in. I'll be looking for the same with Square House Kick later, and you should be able to see how very nice it is when it triggers. Meanwhile, shell shields are a problem, so I'm looking at this and wondering how can I deal with it. I could waste Square House Kick here, but one target seems, well, not very rewarding of a way of using that. So instead, I'm going to teamwork attack and use the weapon attack. Just enough of a boost to get me to make sure I kill the shell shield with just 2 members of the team. It also gets me my 10th enemy, which satisfies one of the 2 Director's Instructions for Phase 1. And I've done it with 4 turns of survival to go. In fact, I come very close to wiping out the entirety of the field here, which is kind of amusing. You don't see that very often in a survival mission, but I'll take what I can get. The downside is, now there's a lot of reinforcements coming out, and yeah, 5 of them right there. Suddenly things don't feel quite as sanguine. But there is an option for that. And that option happens to involve taking a kick and throwing it around in the entire square. Square House Kick is just a fun little thing. It's adjusting the concept of a roundhouse kick to what we actually have in-game, that of a squared hex-based system. Now you see that massive range of the rifle. I slightly misplaced myself if I wanted to go for maximum damage, but with 25 extra damage for Sniper Cat, there was no way that bread crumbler was going to survive, so I didn't have too many concerns. I do want to point out one thing about pistol class weaponry. You do get to see a little bit of this later on in the episode as well, but pistols seem to have a little bit of damage fall off. Rifles don't. Now, given that the techie is the only one who can carry a rifle, it's hard to notice that anyway. You're usually running Sniper Cat, or you're usually not running a rifle. Pistols have some really good benefits to them. Circle of Friendship has some really good benefits in the massive AoE. Now you can see why I say Heal Dukin really not necessary anymore, but may feature a return later on, given certain other skills that our assist will get access to. 2 people, however, is not enough for a shell shield if I'm not using weapon attacks, so I gotta bring in a triple team to get rid of him. Sad, but because I've killed so many enemies so far, I am reaching the point where I've had gotten almost half of my audience bar filled, even before Phase 1 has ended. It's really, really kind of awesome to be able to play a survival round, and to know your team is capable of taking out so many opponents. That's definitely something that probably changes pretty drastically in higher difficulties, because numbers do get changed, and I'm just showing everything off on the interesting level for the reason being, well, I want to enjoy the game that I'm showing off to you, and I'm not wanting to get hyper worried or do some really gnarly manipulations. I am, however, continuing to use swords to take care of turtles. One wonders if Shredder would have had the same luck had he used swords on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But, you know, Shredder was Shredder. Made a better villain for not having the weaponry that the Foot Clan themselves used to bad effect. Now here's what I'm talking about with the pistols. You can see, right point blank, I'm barely managing to hit 80, but any of the other 2 targets, and I would have failed to kill a Nutcracker. I definitely need to upgrade my weaponry. But since that was the last round, and we took a few bits of damage but kept everything standing, we satisfied another director condition. Now we're getting back into the plot here. Now, unlike most other premieres, the plot arc for this one isn't completely established by the premiere episode. We do in fact have part of the reason for that. Namely, Season 2 gets directed onto a path based on that whole court versus tribute decision that we saw back in Season 1 from Dr. So. That's still going to play a role in things later, but for now, we have Cerebro and the Goon Squad all combining their forces. Or rather, Cerebro still being a brain in a jar doing nothing. Cerebro. The fact that the hideout is now known to our enemies will be a somewhat recurring feature throughout the series. We're going to get plenty of fights that happen in this stage setup, and we'll have different barrier setups. We can also increment the whole fast forward the dialogues thing, because that's going to keep happening. Almost every episode, no matter what I do. As far as the barrier setup for this particular stage goes, you can see we're going to get some interesting funneling of characters. And while I could try to defeat 4 enemies in one go this very turn, I don't. Instead, I'm just going to do some team attacks, wipe out these back rank nutcrackers, and make everybody come closer to me. I do that for a very good reason. This is one of the few maps where, even though you have a timer to finish it in, the timer is lenient enough that you could technically finish this on turn 2, just given the enemy setup. Now, I don't have the gear to do that. I didn't get maximum plus attack gear, which is kind of required for it. But I do have a nice setup for what's about to happen. Notice how they're all grouping themselves together? Notice how Square House Kick affects the entire square around folks? I can get 5 people in one Square House Kick. And while the Shell Shield will survive, I've technically accomplished the defeat 4 enemies in one turn in a single skill attack. You can't get much better than that. I will, however, try to engineer better than that as things go on. In the meantime, I'm going to wipe out every single opponent I can from the field. Including, actually, the only one who survives will, in fact, be the Square Shield, because I'll be manipulating the pistol drop-off range to one-shot the Nutcracker. And I think this is even more of a clear indication of that pistol drop-off, as I move closer and you see I finally get a killing blow opportunity. 81 damage, barely, but I do get one. With both Director's Instructions pretty much in the bag in this particular phase over and done with, I decide let's go out with a little bit of flair. Now, if you use your finishing move on anything other than the boss monster in a boss fight, you will get, and it doesn't kill the boss if you do use it on the boss in the boss fight, you actually get a penalty called early usage or something like that. I forget the exact name. But in each phase, you can still use a 5-man team attack finisher to kill the last remaining enemy without getting a penalty. I find that really amusing, in fact, because it lets you manipulate things. You get normal teamwork bonuses for any team attack from 2 to 4 people, but using the finisher seems to give a little bit more of an audience boost. The downside of it is you don't tend to see exactly how much audience you get when you do it. Sad day, perhaps, because it's a little bit of an obfuscation of the effect, but at the same time, it's good. The introduction of our boss monster in this particular episode shows that despite being Season 2 and having somewhat more production quality, we still have some production issues. They're going to be less and less as time goes on, as simply to reflect that the studio is being upgraded in efficiency. But you'll see those little tweaks as things go on. Now, I can't kill every enemy here. I mean, I could, but I'd fail that in structure condition, and I don't want to do that. Furthermore, I don't want to keep the Nutcracker alive. Why? You can kill a character when you use a counter move, and I don't want to counterkill the Nutcracker and then fail that direction instruction. So rather than keep the Nutcracker, the least threatening character alive, I'm keeping a Bread Crumbler. Now, the Bread Crumbler could ruin my day by throwing dynamite. He doesn't, but he could. But because you can't counter ranged attacks, it's safe to keep him around. Now, Tubby, unfortunately, isn't quite within one-shot territory for this team, especially since I used some weapon attacks leading into this. But he is pretty weak. Unlike the Transitmancer's Phase 2 fight in the season finale of Season 1, he's really not as much of a threat. Now, I'm going for single attacks here, and I'm glad I do because I get a critical. If I got another critical, this could be very dangerous. I do have Tubby locked in, which is nice, and because I'm getting leery of an accidental kill, I go for Circle of Friendship. I do in fact get that other critical, so I'm really glad I went Circle of Friendship. Now, the Bread Crumbler can't do much, and that dodge boot pays off. Unfortunately, I do get knocked back, but his knockback is not nearly as devastating as, for instance, Barrel Man's was, or could have been. Instead, he keeps everybody close enough that Goon Squad can come together, we can post Small Bart again, and win the day in style. That's right, we're keeping that instruction train going, and in fact on this particular playthrough I managed to get all of Season 1's without screwing it up either. That is the end of this particular episode. We do get a little bit of an epilogue, namely the foreshadowing that we're going to fight around Cerebro's chambers many more times. But this season doesn't have a mecha fight. It's another reason why I wanted to focus on doing a bonus episode, not only to do more detail about our new squad members, but also show off the Transitmancer fight from this particular playthrough, because you can see some of the changes with a direct comparison to the Season 1 finale episode, if you so desire. I'll just discuss them as well, but if you want to watch them side by side, you'll be able to in that regard. As far as Season 2 shaping up, considering I already have some of the gear handled, I'm probably going to look at trying to craft new helmets. But I do want to get weapons. That's probably going to wind up being the thing. And I'm getting a lot more money. Now, mostly that's because I had 4,000 audience and an extra 10% on top. But you can see how money is not as big a problem. I do show off that we had the Enlarge Your Sword early last time. We get it again here, and since I'm recording, I went ahead and decided, instead of canceling the recording there, we'll do this one on camera this time. Now it says 117, but as with everything else, what they intend to charge you isn't what they actually charge you. So we have an enlarged sword that will probably go on Takeshi as I try to get a spear for our lead-in bender. But that's all for this episode of Let's Play Chroma Squad. Hopefully I'm going to be getting back into weekly recordings, so I hope to see you next time on this Let's Play. Everybody take care out there, and stay frosty.